Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Epic Comic Book Wednesday. This is a collaboration between Michael K Vaughan and myself, where we combine the forces of stately Vaughan Manor and Hyde Cottage to talk about comic books. Some comic book creator, some comic book title, some run, some trend, whatever it is, he gets to pick, and I'm happy to tag along. This week, for the second week in a row, we are doing a pick that coincides with Mike's great event, Cimmerian September. All through September, we are reading Conan, talking about Conan, loving Conan, including Conan pastiche fiction. And by definition, comic book adaptations of Robert E. Howard's stories have to be pastiche fiction. And today we're doing a great one. I thought about digging out my paperback, but then I realized I'm a sultry 28-year-old. There's no chance that I have a paperback of this. This is instead the electronic copy of Conan the Barbarian number 100. Marvel Comics started Conan the Barbarian as a four-color comic book with the first issue. They achieved greatness with issue number 4, which is the Tower of the Elephant. And then they went on from there. They were all written by Roy Thomas. They were drawn by a whole bunch of people, Barry Smith and Gil Kane and a whole bunch of others, until finally Roy Thomas found the artist of his dreams, John Buscema. And they had a run on Conan the Barbarian, and also over in Savage Sword of Conan, the black and white magazine. But we'll talk about Conan the Barbarian now. They had a run on Conan the Barbarian that was phenomenal. Not just in terms of its unbelievable length, but also in terms of its quality. I loved those issues. I bought them whenever I was in the country. My weekly visit to the comic shop would have Superman and World's Finest and Adventure Comics and Batman and Action Comics and Detective Comics and whatnot. But no matter what Marvel was doing, there would always be something there. Usually the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, the Mighty Thor, and also Conan. I had a number of different comic shop proprietors noticed that it stuck out, that I was getting Conan when I wasn't getting anything else except superheroes. Every once in a while, that pattern had been broken in the past. Joe Kubert's Tarzan, I wasn't going to miss at all. But I quickly came to form an opinion about Roy Thomas's run on Conan the Barbarian, and maybe even Conan, the Savage Sword of Conan, that has won me few fans with Robert E. Howard followers and worshipers, which is that I don't think anyone ever wrote this character better than Roy Thomas, including Robert E. Howard. I think that run, the first 100 issues of Conan the Barbarian from Marvel Comics, will give you just about as perfect a view of Conan, the character, as you can get. A lot of times without any words at all, thanks to the artwork of John Buscema. And thanks also to the very tasteful, very intelligent way that Roy Thomas would lift lines and scenarios and phrases while also filling in the picture himself and keeping Conan marvelously in character through tons of adventures that aren't even hinted at in Robert E. Howard's stories. But a long way into the run on Marvel Comics, Conan the Barbarian, Roy Thomas decided to try something new, something different. He went to a Robert E. Howard story, Queen of the Black Coast, which introduces the character of the pirate queen Bêlit, who I've shown you this in comic books myself on this channel. Conan just happens to, he's running from the law. He signs on with a merchant vessel. They are overtaken by Bêlit's corsairs and killed to a man, except for Conan, who is taken on board the vessel and is an object of fascination for Bêlit. All of her warriors are black. She is not. She is white. She's Shemite. And she decides, well, Conan's willing to sell his life pretty dearly, but what if I test him against the strongest member of my crew, and if he succeeds, maybe I take him on board. That's this issue. But she doesn't want him on board as a crew member. She makes that clear right from the beginning. There is an incredible scene, it would never happen in a comic book today, where once Conan defeats her strongest man, she offers herself to him. Just plainly offers herself to him. She says, "Take me, Conan, take me and crush me with your fierce love. Go with me to the ends of the earth and to the ends of the sea. I am a queen by fire and steel and slaughter. Be thou my king. And Conan agrees. And the first time that my Deb said those exact same words to me, I also agreed. And the reason I say this is strange and new is because Roy Thomas doesn't intend to have her then and gone. The title of this issue is Queen of the Black Coast. But this is not the story of Queen of the Black Coast is one story, and that's it. This is the beginning of Bêlit guest starring in Conan the Barbarian. He signs on with her, and we follow him from one adventure to another, including adventures that take her all the way back to her homeland. And some of those stories are really, really good. We get introduced to the members of her crew. Roy Thomas creates a black character, a black barbarian, a thinking man, a sorcerer, a scholar, but also very big, very powerful, handy with a sword. And Roy Thomas, by this point, had already taken the raw materials of a character from a Robert E. Howard story and created a Hyborian character that's almost as immortal as Conan himself. Red Sonja, she-devil with a sword. A tall, flaming red-haired female warrior who is a fit companion for Conan in adventure, let's just say. A match for anyone. And in this long run with Conan and Bêlit, where they have all sorts of adventures, not only did Roy Thomas craft a story that has Conan and Red Sonja meet Bêlit, and the two women seem almost like they would come to blows. That would go very poorly for Bêlit. That would be, Conan would have the very sad duty of seeing his beloved beheaded by the woman who never was his actual beloved. Roy Thomas, the writer, leaves no doubt about that. Bêlit is very good in a fight. She's very handy with a knife and with a scimitar. But she can't beat Red Sonja any more than she could beat Conan. But in addition to that, thanks to some timey-wimey, some timey-wimey stuff that Roy Thomas introduces, he also has Bêlit and Red Sonja and Conan meet King Kull. That run just kept going for years. And it was fascinating. I loved it. Those are some of my favorite issues. But the thing is, when Roy Thomas introduces Bêlit, you know what's going to happen. She's not like Red Sonja, where she shows up, they have adventures, and she rides off into the sunset. We know what happens. If you're a Robert E. Howard fan, you know what happens in Queen of the Black Coast. The Bêlit, she is greedy. She is aggrieved. She's been pushed out of her royal lineage, and she's got the bug of all pirates. She wants more and more treasure, and they come to a distant murk enshrouded shore. This is the type of thing that Robert E. Howard did so well. It's a swampy jungle, and there are perils everywhere. But Bêlit has heard stories about treasure buried in a ruined temple. They know they're not alone in this place. Something big with wings is watching them from a great distance. But they decide to go anyway. And at one point in the story, the pit that holds the treasure is booby-trapped. And Bêlit suspects this and lets her own men die in the booby trap rather than herself and Conan. She doesn't want him endangered, and she doesn't tell them about it either, because she knows the only way to disarm the booby trap is for someone to die. So not a sympathetic character at all. And she does this for treasure, which she wants, just helplessly wants it. And along the way, on the way to that climax, she shares philosophical background discussion with Conan. One of, you sense, many conversations they would have along these lines. Conan's life philosophy is very simple. Hers is maybe a little bit more complex. But if you've read the story, you know what's coming. You know that Bêlit does not survive. And that, Roy Thomas, I think, probably had a broader idea of that in mind from the beginning when he introduced Bêlit. And that maybe as time went on, he gradually thought, maybe I'll tell the end of the story. I'll tell the actual story of Robert E. Howard's Queen of the Black Coast in Conan the Barbarian number 100. No small milestone for a book that doesn't star superheroes. And that's what he did. Conan the Barbarian 100. Not a spoiler on this cover, because, like I say, every Conan fan knew what was coming. They know how this story ends. That big winged thing is watching the crew of Bêlit's ship. They're watching everything that is done. I want to show you. This is absolutely lovely. This is John Buscema artwork. I was waiting for this. I was kind of, sort of thinking, around issue number 90, I was kind of, sort of thinking, well, you can't team up with Bêlit forever. I wonder what they're going to do for issue number 100. Could it be that that's when they're going to tell the story? Look at this. Look at what Buscema does here with these murky jungles with these giant snakes slithering away out of nowhere. She and Conan have a heart-to-heart. Love the coloring job there. She says, Conan, do you fear the gods? And he says, I would not tread on their shadow. And she says, but what of your own gods? I've never heard you call on them for aid, only swear by them. And Conan says, their chief is Crom. He dwells on a great mountain. What use to call on him? Little he cares if men live or die. Better to be silent than to call his attention to you. He will send your doom, not fortune. He is grim and loveless, but at birth he breathes power to strive and slay into a man's soul. What else shall men ask of the gods? And we get another panoramic view here of the ship just making its way along these fetid, choked jungle waterways, where Bêlit says, well, and what of life after death, my lover? And he says, I know not, nor do I care. I know only this, let me live deep while I live, while philosophers brood. I live, I burn with life, I love, I slay, and I am content. Which is pretty much Conan in a nutshell, perfectly captured here. And she, Bêlit, looks sad. She looks like she has some presentiment of her doom stalking her very closely. She says, and yet the gods are real, and there is life after death, I know. I know this too, Conan of Samaria. My love is stronger than death. My heart and soul are welded to yours. Were I still in death, and you fighting for your life, I would come back from the abyss to aid you. Just lovely. Then, of course, they get interrupted because a giant snake has grabbed one of the crew members. And they eventually do reach this decayed city. And there's something on top of that pedestal that is not a statue. It moves and it flies away. And they make their way to the treasure, and Buscema does a great job here, where Bêlit is not happy. She's trapped. She's helpless. It's they find treasure, and she is. Their water casks are staved in. This creature is obviously trying to strand them, and she doesn't care. She's just lost with this treasure. She doesn't care at all. Conan takes men into the jungle to look for more water and brushes against the black lotus plant, which imparts, instead of instant death, a dream, a fantasy about a long, long distant past and an ancient race of angelic, advanced, winged beings, angel-type beings. But the world changes. Volcanoes erupt, monstrous beasts prey on the land, the earth shakes, and eventually that race degenerates. Conan is seeing all this in a vision. Eventually they become gnarled, ape-like, naked creatures, and finally there is only one left. Just one creature. And it lives on this island. It has a whole bunch of hyenas as its vassals, but it lives on this island. Conan wakes up, having seen all this, and immediately fears the worst. He immediately fears that this creature is going to be the end of everything, that they have stumbled into the lair of something and need to get out right away. He does indeed find all of his crew members dead or insane, and has to kill one of them, and goes insane, and he has to kill him in his own defense. Finally, he makes it back to the ship, and there is Bêlit. dead, hanging from her own yardarm. And he stacks her with all of this treasure that she wanted, and plenty of other treasure besides. But he has a grimmer mission in store. He doesn't just want to lay her out, take her down from that horrible noose, lay her out, and pile her all around with treasure. He also wants vengeance. And he waits. On the temple steps, he waits for those hyenas to show up, but he knows he's waiting for something else. He kills hyena after hyena after hyena, finally runs out of arrows, they get too close, and he starts hacking at them. He is mad with rage, but he wants to know, where is your leader? Where is the monster that slew my mate? And eventually, once he is done with all of these hyenas, he gets his wish. Something seems to be approaching, and it causes a groundquake. It causes the temple's ruins to shake and wobble. And disastrously, a column falls on Conan and pins him to the ground at just the wrong time, because the monster is approaching. He can't reach his sword, he can't move, and this winged thing that has killed everyone else here is approaching him. And this is just terrific John Buscema artwork. Just terrific. This thing getting closer and closer to him, when suddenly, one of my favorite moments in all of Marvel Comics, suddenly, she's there. Look at that. She's not dressed in her usual outfit, the fur bikini. She's dressed in her winding sheet. Suddenly she's there. And we get the quote, and it comes back with tremendous power. And then a glimmer of white flashes between that shadow and its victim. In one mad instant, she is there, a tense, pale shape, vibrant with love, as fierce as a she-panther's. And she cries out, a sharp, ringing cry, as sharp as the ring of steel, as she thrusts at the apish creature's breast. And Conan remembers the words. See? She's attacking this thing. He's still stuck there, and he remembers the words. Look at the ghostly face we get here. The coloring here is just superb. Were I still in death, and you fighting for your life, I would come back from the abyss to aid you. And notice, she's not there. The creature is fighting with something, but we don't see her anymore. And it gives Conan the chance he needs to free himself. And he kills the creature, and we're told that the oldest race in the world is now extinct. And he piles up the ship, sets it out into the water, and sets it on fire as a fitting end to the Queen of the Black Coast. And as he watches, he cries. And that is the end of Conan the Barbarian number 100, which is our pick for Sumerian September today. It's a great, great issue. The Marvel Comics run on Conan the Barbarian had lots of good stuff in it. Lots of good stuff. But this is probably my favorite moment from the whole of that years-long run. I remember getting this issue, or, well, of course, I'm not old enough, but I remember hearing about it. My grandfather got it on the newsstand, and thinking, what on earth are you going to do after this? I've got so used to the crew, and the same as maritime artwork, and Bêlit as a great foil for Conan. What are we going to do after that? I think that Conan the Barbarian from Marvel Comics slowly began a downhill spiral after that. I don't think it was ever as good as this again. But I loved revisiting it for Sumerian September. This is just a fantastic choice. And that is it for today. I don't know if we're going to be continuing. Like I said, I don't pick these things. So I don't know if we're going to be continuing with another Conan issue for a comic book for next Wednesday. That would be awesome. But we'll see. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.